We'll call it to order.
Just calling it to order, it's on now, right?
All right. Welcome.
We're a jovial group tonight.
Yeah. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Just like to call attention that on your agenda, there's a Journey East report, which hopefully will be pretty short, but Tom Connor has some things to share with you. We're shooting for 8 o'clock for him, so when he comes, if you could accommodate him, that would be kind. I don't think it'll affect the rest of your business during the evening, and
We're out of
that's right, you're out here for the debates, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
for the
good.
Okay, so
debate.
that'll be towards the, so maybe you wanna take some other things,
Yes.
maybe you wanna take some other things ahead of time.
All right, so
But I did wanna call attention to introducing Bill Anton, who
We all know.
will be your superintendent starting
Hello,
July
Bill.
1. And,
Nice to have you here, Bill.
He's here to get a little insight into how the dynamics work with the Leland Gray Board. So I'm sure you all be on your best behavior, right?
aren't we always?
Anyway, thank you, Bill, for being here.
Stephen, I had a question about the agenda.
Right, what?
It didn't get emailed to me. I don't think it got emailed out, and I was wondering whether.
Well,
it was
there's
just a-
some, there
glitch
is
in the-
some debate about that. It is, I
Well, there's
did,
not debate about it in my inbox, but there's,
well,
I'm curious.
I don't have an explanation for it, okay?
I don't need an
did not-
explanation.
I did
I'm
not
bringing
send
it up.
it directly, but I do know that it was properly posted
saw
online.
it.
And actually, I learned to correct myself regarding a policy issue today by looking online to see what really was
Because that's
the
where.
record, the public record. So I apologize for that. I will speak to Meg Wright about what may have happened there regarding the direct emails, so thank you.
You
for-
may be taking it in a different manner in which I was trying to question. I just wanted to make sure that if you were unaware that it wasn't emailed, maybe you would follow up and just make sure.
I wasn't aware
Good.
until
Yeah.
tonight. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Thanks. Anybody else? No. Okay. Bill, I can include you under members of the public if you have something you'd like to, discuss. Just
No.
gonna hang out.
I'm here to observe and watch. and
Nothing
listen
better to
and
do on a
learn.
Tuesday night?
That's right.
All right. Does anyone have any correspondence for us? I do not, but Stephen, I know you did.
I do.
Doreen, would you?
You want to take yours first?
Sure. We got a letter from the College Board, addressed to me, but I want to share it with everyone. Sorry, it's not the College Board. It says the University of Vermont and the College Board on top. So there's 2 addresses coming from 2 places somehow. Let's see. On behalf of the University of Vermont and the College Board, we congratulate Leland and Gray Union Middle and High School for its participation in the Advanced Placement Program. I'm going to skip down a little bit. In addition to strengthening their college readiness, AP students can receive college credit for AP exam grades of 4 or 5 in most subjects and a score of 4 in some areas. Success with AP allows students to delve deeper into their academic areas, etc. I'm going to go down some more. In 2015, 7 Leland and Gray Union Middle and High School graduates submitted 15 AP exam scores to the University of Vermont. We want to recognize your tremendous support in providing access to rigorous academic programming that makes a difference. We commend your high school for its participation in this proven and far-reaching program and look forward to receiving more AP scores from the 2016 entering class.
Wow, that's
Nice.
very good.
That's nice.
That's very good.
Very cool. Great, thank you. Stephen, you have something?
Yeah, I have 2 pieces. One is that you're aware every year we sign a regional memo of understanding, the Windham Southeast Supervisory Union, Windham Southwest Supervisory Union, the Windham Central Supervisory Union, and the 2 Rivers Supervisory Union. Those are all our neighbors. I have a memorandum that outlines how people may choose among the public schools to attend a different school than the school district in which they're resident. I'll pass this along to the board if members of the board may not have seen it before, but this is a document signed by the superintendents of those SUs. We are obliged legally to have such an arrangement to support choice within the public school system among high schools, grades 9 through 12, not 7 and 8, just 9 through 12. And there first of all, were some pretty small limitations on the number of kids that could exercise this choice, but there has been a new, was it a legislative?
Yes, it was a
motion?
law.
It was a legislative
New
law
law.
that loosened it up so that it made it standardized across all the.
There's 9-12
the high
public school
schools.
choice in the state of Vermont.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be these. This is a memorandum.
Go outside these for the
It could be
choice.
outside,
Public
you could have somebody go to Burlington or anyplace else, really, there's no restriction that way. This agreement just makes clear about the timeline for, making clear that you want to exercise that choice. And then also, it does stipulate, at least among the superintendents in this area, that you could refuse a student based on behavior.
Is that published
Discipline
online?
stuff.
Have you posted that?
Well, I'm writing a note on it to make sure it's posted online on the Leland Gray website. I think that's the most likely one for people to see. We are officially, we are required to make sure this is readily available, known to the public. And the schools involved are Vernon and Guilford and Newbrook and Dummerston and Leland and Gray and Putney and Oak Grove and Green Street and Academy and Brattleboro and Brattleboro FAMs and so forth. They were all listed in here. I think that's about it. Questions?
There has to be space available and all that sort of thing. It's not like you just say, I want to go, and you go. There's
Right,
Process.
if somebody wanted to take a class that was oversubscribed, you could decline to accept them, because you're not obliged to hire an extra teacher because somebody comes in as a choice from someplace else. Actually, Leland Gray's had the benefit of many more students coming in than going out historically.
Any restriction on special education? I would hope not, but I can see it happening.
Well, special education is an IEP project, there's a hearing and a staff meeting
But I'm
with the
wondering if
parent.
choice can be,
And inclusion is not, is usually involved in the local school system. But if a proper placement and progress isn't made, vis-a-vis
choose another
that, then
school.
you can place
They
elsewhere.
can do that even outside of this law.
Yeah,
And
that's not related to this law, that would have happened before.
I can speak to that. So it hasn't been a restriction in the past, but whatever special education services come about get billed back to that district.
that's right.
And if they don't
That's true.
approve to pay for it, then the student can't remain, and that has happened.
You're absolutely right, yeah.
And the school choice, the public school choice information, Kelly, is on our school website under, for parents and students. So it's basically
It's
the
already
same
there,
each
huh?
year. Yep, yeah. And it doesn't specify schools, but because it is open to the whole state. But it does specify a timeline, which, when students move in, say during the summer, for example, we had a student move into the Athens-Grafton area. We were the closest high school. And at the first school board meeting in August or September, they allowed him to come to Leland and Gray. Now, the problem is we don't get any tuition for them, but it's still nice to be known as a school.
Right, the ADM stays with the resident town.
I can't imagine the school board having approved him to come if they would lose their tuition money. So, like you said.
Right, but in that case, high school, it's Fellows Falls that retains the ADM. Okay, any other questions on that? Then my second piece of correspondence is a letter that I will pass around. The gist of this letter is that I support the Windham Regional Commission. The letter's addressed to Matt Mann, Senior Transportation Planner for the Windham region. And this is trying to get public bus transportation on Route 30. So that would certainly benefit our students as well as our employees and kids. So I wrote a letter in support of that. And actually, I'm always advocating for a later start at Leland and Gray, and this would make that possible too, because we might be able to reallocate the resources that we spend on a 45-passenger bus going to Brattleboro and back for the Career Center to other transportation that would support a late start of the school. One of the stoppers in the past has been the additional bus run that might be required in Wardsboro. But until this happens, we'll have to plan without it, and, but I do share that letter with you if you care to read it.
Okay.
That's it.
Thanks.
For correspondence from me.
All right, pushing right along. Doreen, thanks for your documents emailed. I know I spent some time going through them. Does anyone have any questions for Doreen on her documents?
So the public's interest, they're posted online under reports.
Right. Seeing as how nobody has any questions, Doreen, is there anything you want to briefly highlight?
Briefly being the operative word here.
I guess we're trying to get out of here for debates.
That's, oh, right, right. I do want to ask the board if there are questions or concerns that there is a new master schedule under consideration for our school.
I need to read that again more carefully because, talk to us about that.
Okay, so we, 2 years ago, a group of teachers with the assistance of our IT coordinator at the time, who was still involved with the process, began looking at other schedules because they had two tasks. One was to provide 60 minutes of math instruction every day, just like we do at the elementary schools, which is a commitment Leland Gray has made to the supervisory union. As well as to increase the length of middle school classes because they were reduced from 52 to 42 minutes about 5 years ago, and never feeling like that was the right fit of time. And so through that, they proposed a schedule that was more flexible, where the two parts of the schedule would be that not every class would have to meet for the same length of time during the school day. So one class might be 45 minutes, another class might be 60 or 75 minutes, and that there would be a trimester system. And the way that that calculated to be that a student could actually earn more credits in a school year. Instead of 8, it would be 8.5. Perhaps we would be able to meet the needs of students, not only in terms of having a time frame that was suited to each subject area, but also increasing the likelihood of students actually being able to get into the class, because that is one of the biggest concerns of any high school, is that the master schedule prevented my student from getting into class. So actually on Thursday this week, the former IT coordinator, the director of student services, and I we make up the scheduling committee. We do the nuts and bolts. So we're gonna do the nuts and bolts of the schedule, which may have an impact on FTEs because of, for example, math, that they would increase math instruction perhaps by 1/3, depending on how far we're gonna have that go, if it was an hour a day all year. So that's it in a nutshell. So it's not even something that we're proposing to do yet. We have to see if it works and if there's any financial implications of that.
Wow, you managed to answer both of my questions in that.
Oh, super.
Does it have a budgetary impact, and does it rearrange does it actually address some of the problems that we've had with block scheduling for over the years? And I'll be interested to see how the initial fitment of it works out.
When will we hear more?
Oh, by our next meeting, I'll be able to say we're having the same schedule as next year, or this is the new schedule, and it may or may not be reflected in the budget, because it may or may not have an impact. So, but that's one area identified is mathematics. But looking at the SBAC scores, and also in the previous NECAP scores in writing at all grade levels, well, they used to be just 8 and 11, but now it's 7, 8, and 11. That year after year, students, a too small percentage of our students perform with proficiency on the writing exam. Reading, fine, but not in writing. And then the SBAC, it pinpointed reading as well as a problem. So do we need to increase instruction for some students while accelerating others through enriched electives in English? So that's another thing we're looking at right now.
I saw in that report on on the aspects that the adjustment to the instruction period is like September to June, and then you look at it, then you start looking at it, so there would be adjustments being made to the instruction plan over the course of the next school year, and then we would be looking to see changes in outcomes as early as next fall.
So, and that would be true of our seventh graders. Well, I think about it. The seventh graders and eighth graders who we have right now, we can do that year-to-year comparison, because the SBAC really emphasizes individual student growth as opposed to the aggregate of the school. But once the students are, after they finished eighth grade, we can compare their growth from what they did in seventh to what they did in eighth, but then they don't take the test again till 11th. So we don't have that year after year data. That's why it's really important for Leland and Gray to really formalize its comprehensive assessment system. So we have our own diagnostics and assessments built in that are mainly in teachers' classes, so that they can respond in that way.
Good question. Could we have seen some of these issues in these kids in elementary school? How were the kneecap tests for, say, the kids who were in seventh grade and took the English, SBAC tests? Did they have any issues previously with
Well, it is a big
proficiency?
decline from where they performed in kneecap in the elementary
Really?
schools too.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so it's
Okay.
like a 20-point difference. I mean, I'm throwing out that number. For
You
some
were
schools, it's
anticipating
more.
that, weren't you, in the change?
The whole state anticipated
what
there
I-
being a big
right.
decline.
They
And
knew it was
that's
gonna come in lower.
right, and Rebecca Holcomb said it's not really fair to hold schools accountable if the students hadn't been taught the Common Core curriculum all the way
Right.
through,
Right.
like at the 11th grade, what they're being assessed on.
So you're not
Right.
comparing apples to apples?
No, but we
Not
are
yet.
comparing ourselves to others in the state.
Right.
Well, the other thing is too, that before, we had the SBAC and we weren't comparing two different tests, we still had the same drop-off happening in terms of student performance.
When they went from elementary to
Middle
Middle
school, high
school. That's something.
Well, that's a national problem.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yes, it's not unique to Leland and Gray at all.
There's a correlation with adolescence that has something
Yeah.
to do with it. But still, it's our challenge that we need to
Still reach them.
figure out. And that's, I think, one of the motivations that I like behind the personalized learning plan is that does promise to have more engaged learning or more commitment on the part of the adolescent.
But if I could just say once in a while, there are exceptions, because I was really thrilled to see that our class of 2016, that almost half the class met proficiency on the science test,
That's science.
which is a big increase from when they were in eighth grade.
Mhm.
So that was, that bucked the trend. And that, and if you look at the regular education, like the first bullet there around observations in grade 11 science, that among our regular education students, 52% pass the test, but at the state level is only 36%. So really important gains that have been made.
In that area, but I mean, again, I assume that what we're doing is we're trying to address the issue as we move forward with, not just here, but statewide, nationally, to try to improve our students', I hate to use outcomes in this case, but I'll just say outcomes.
Student performance.
We continue, I assume, to look at our, I don't want to put all of the emphasis on an SBAC test. We know that, we've talked about that, I've been doing this long enough to know this is not the end-all, be-all. We know we have many other measures to go by. But when we consistently show that we are performing below state average, that exception you just explained was phenomenal. I was really pleased as well. But we are below state average in many ways, and we were also on the kneecaps in many areas as well. We were above them in some ways too, but in those areas where we consistently are performing below state average, and some places really significantly, what is the way, how do we look at that? Are we looking at that as an individual situation? Are we looking at that as a long-term? How are you dealing with that?
Well, first of all, what I just mentioned about the continued low scores in writing particularly, and the need to add some kind of writing, including grammar, class for students who need it, starting in 7th grade. And then and that's, according to the statistics, 2/3 of the class. So maybe it's a semester at the beginning of the year, if we had a trimester system. But so there's a clear need for, I'll use the word remediation in writing for a large percentage of our students. The in-service days that we've had this fall, so today was one of them also, is in reading instruction, teaching reading comprehension and fluency. And learning about how to read the diagnostics from which to create the prescriptive, so the interventions that students would need to be able to comprehend the content. And so, really all our professional development for the last 5 years has been about literacy and instruction. So there's a lot more teaching of reading and writing going on in all the classes, but are we hitting in those areas that specifically is the problem spots? And that takes much more, I'll say, scrutinized review of each individual
Right.
student and that prescriptive approach.
So how much, we've been working on this for quite some time and haven't really seen a lot of substantial results from the work we've been doing. And I know you've been shifting, your method as time's gone on, and I've been really excited about the way you've been leading the school in that way. How much are we talking about the climate and culture here as well? I understand that, we can see deficiencies in areas based on the results of these tests, but we had talked in the past about students not taking them seriously. We've talked at length about, for many, many years, about the need for the school to lead in this way, to say these are really critically important, they mean everything to yourselves and to the school. How much do we think that that's having an impact still?
Well, according to our students who presented a couple of meetings ago, not nearly enough. And about 6 months ago, the student council fought vigorously against the idea of having standardized test scores included on their transcript. Maybe we shouldn't have been so easily swayed. That is one method. Another method is that if you don't pass your junior level or even your 8th grade level kneecap test, that the following fall you have to take a remedial course in addition to the course, your regular course. It's possible for them to have consequences that they feel.
So that's holding them accountable. How about holding ourselves accountable to make sure we have a climate and a culture that is really, are we feeling like we need work there as well as a school system?
My experience is that the teachers are taking it very seriously. Our students may have seen, they're not here tonight, so I can't point to them, even though I keep looking at Jan and expecting to be surrounded by them. But maybe they would have something else to say, but they have their own culture too.
Of course.
So, but they must be learning, they must be trying on some of it because they did fine on the math exams. I shouldn't say fine, better than the state average, it's not fine, they still could do better.
It's also a climate that you very consistently, and I appreciate it, brought to us. It was a 47% at the poverty level or below, and there's a lot, when you talk about climate and culture, there's a lot going on in this area that I think is impacting.
But if the board would like to see more, if you want to direct me to do more, one year you directed me to add incentives, we did that, I worked with the teachers, then I worked with the students, but I think that at this point, it could have more of a rub.
Have you given any thought to, I've read an article in Time Magazine about a lot of schools are, the College Board is making the SAT tests available to them for free for kids to take in place of the standardized testing. And, yeah, and they actually start them younger. They can take them year after year after year, so. I meant to bring the article, I left it at home.
Yeah, I expressed some interest, so why don't you get that out to us, all the
Yeah,
board
I
members, and
will.
get it
It
out
was
to us
very,
by
very
email.
interesting article.
Because I think you
and-
pointed out it doesn't cost the school anything, because there's some statewide arrangement.
Yeah, it's, the College Board is feeling some competition with the ACT people, and so that stands for something. That test
But you
stands
weren't
for
saying
something.
in place of the SBAC.
They are. New Hampshire has been allowed.
So but that's a state decision as opposed to.
Yeah, we
just
would
an
not have that
individual
option
school.
to
It wouldn't be in
exercise that
place of that
locally.
other test.
It is in some states.
Right, it
That's
would be,
what they're
that would be
talking
a
about,
state.
that it is
wide
in
decision.
some states, that it is in place of.
Hmm.
Like New Hampshire
wonder
has
if
made
that
it
would-
okay to be in place of the Common Core. And Iowa, I think, and there's a bunch of states.
I wonder if that would give you the diagnostic tools that like the SBAC seems to.
Well, SBAC promises diagnostic tools and insights that we haven't yet realized. We can't say as a staff or
Right.
teachers individually, they can access that
Right.
enough to be able to tell, but that is the intention.
Right.
And certainly the last spring was a pilot, but it was, certainly a baseline upon which we could measure, which brings me to what I wanted to call the board's attention to, and that is, rather than graphing the percentage of kids that are proficient each year or not and so forth, or comparing to statewide average, what really matters to a child and a parent is whether they've improved over time. So, and we don't have the excuse of having 10,000 kids here to have to keep track of. So we should be able to report on an individual basis, the data that was listed here, on the class of 2016. We had them in 2012. Now, when we compare 2012 to 2016 by percentages, perhaps that's a valid difference, but perhaps we have different students. In 4 years, you can have quite a number of different students move in and out. So really, when you're comparing what impact our program and our instruction has had at Leland and Gray on a student, the scores that are most indicative are the students who remained with the school for that period of time.
But that goes far beyond the SBAC.
Yes, it could go regarding local assessments, other assessments, and other indicators, but I believe when, I'm encouraging the board to consider when you make goals, that you so stipulate that the analysis go to the composite of the individual progress, or lack thereof, of students, rather than going by, what's publicly posted or what's available in terms of percentage proficient compared to the state. That's what you ought to be paying for as taxpayers. Now, it's a lot simpler to look at the other thing, but I suggest it's not as effective.
Are
Oh,
there
you
any,
had something?
sorry.
Can I change subjects? Seventh graders extra day, where is that coming from?
So they started school a
Right.
day before all the other students.
Mhm.
And years ago, just 2 years ago, really, they would end school a day early. So if school ended June 15th, they would have, that was the last day for the school, their last day would actually be June 14th. And so the problem with that was it created more of an imbalance with fewer days. What was it? It was like
Yeah,
an
it
added
is.
day, an added day in the first semester and a day less in the second semester. And so the idea was, a couple of years ago, was to move it to the first semester, so it'd be more balanced. So last year it was, I think it was just before Thanksgiving, that the seventh graders had an extra day off. That was what was written in the student handbook, I believe, that it was like tentative, that it was going to be that day that they were making up. But the seventh grade team suggested that it would be the day before the holiday break in December. So I'm not aware that the board would need to approve it, because I wasn't aware that it happened before, but I wanted you to be informed, and if you were concerned, to let me know.
It's just a matter of logistics, and like today was a problem for me. I'm in this district with 2 children in 2 different schools, and it was a problem. And last year, the day before Thanksgiving, for some reason, it wasn't a problem. Maybe I don't remember it being an issue, but I know parents, it's hard when your children are all, and the end of the year seems to be just more fluid anyways, so I just didn't notice it. But it's an issue just to keep in mind.
If you find that that's, widespread, we certainly would like to know about it, because there isn't anything sacred about having it,
One time
before
a year.
Thanksgiving.
I'm assuming it's
but-
not before Thanksgiving this year, because that's a holiday week, the whole week is off this year.
Yeah, right, that's not
Right,
possible
it's
this year.
December 23rd.
And maybe that won't be in next year's calendar, depending on what feedback we get.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I encourage the public to let me know by any means. The real issue for seventh graders is being young adolescents, they don't really want to go to school any longer than the eighth graders, so.
I don't think they actually notice it though, I have to tell you,
Well,
they're
as a middle
lucky to go
school-
there a day early because they get there before the big kids and get settled, so
Well, As a
as a
middle school
parent,
principal, I can
yeah.
assure you I was brought to task about that, not that I needed to adjust, but I do think it is an issue of instructional days also with regard to the teachers, and a question of equity. Yep, sorry, move on.
Anything else about there's a lot packed in here, but we don't, I know that people wanted to pay attention to the,
Yep.
student performance data, but the rest might be able to speak for itself.
I think we're all right.
Thank you, Doreen, there's a lot in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Thank you for your
There's a lot of
support.
very useful information.
All right, Stephen, you're next.
Just something short. Oliver Olson will present along with, no, I'm not sure David Sharp will be there. Tomorrow in Jamaica. If you happen to be in the Jamaica town or neighbor, you might want to check in with that. He also wrote a piece in the Digger that's about choice. I do have copies of that available. There's also copies available to you. I'll leave them out here in case when you leave you want to get them. An article by Laura Sibilia.
Are you going to the Oliver Olson thing?
I am, yeah. I'm going to everything. And I did make a glossary of terms for Act 46 in response to, I think I may have emailed this to all of you, but in response to the inquiry about the public being confused about various terms used in these discussions. So, and then I also have the article that is regarding Dover's approach, Act 46 slowly. This is in the Reformer. I just copied that for people. I know a lot of people don't read the paper, so, make copies available for you. And depending on what feedback I get, I'll include that in the folder on the website about Act 46 in terms of information.
Is your glossary of terms online?
It isn't yet, but
Okay.
I propose that I put it there, actually, but I'm actually waiting until I get a bunch of other questions about what I meant, because I may think I was clear there, but if it isn't clear to people, if they have a clarification, I'll be able to adjust that and post it.
Did you email that to us?
I don't think I did.
I don't
I
think so
can't
either.
remember. I've been, yeah. And I think that's it. Act 46 is taking up a lot of the air in the room by all the boards, and rightly so. I hope we can remain focused, at least try to keep my administration, my principals focused on instruction and learning, despite the debate.
Does Rich
Regarding
have any
governance.
responses to this letter?
Sorry,
There's a letter that
Rich's
is-
letter, yeah. I did get an inquiry from Ron Staley on behalf of boards down there. He was questioning the date because the date happens to be when the superintendents and some school board members are attending the
All
annual
school board
conference.
members are invited.
All school members
to
are
Lake
invited,
Warren, right?
everybody's welcome.
It's the 22nd.
It is
We
our
rarely-
conference as well
Yeah.
as yours.
Right.
We rarely, Emily is very dedicated about going, we rarely have, many people from this SU, but Rich just put out a date there because it was convenient, and I've reassured Dr. Staley, as well as anybody else who inquires, as Rich has, that we can change the date easily if there's interest to be more convenient. I I didn't object to the date because I think this is a matter of board business and not one that the superintendents have to be.
Which is the reason I objected to it, because it is a VSBA conference as well as a VSA conference, and I did object to it. And
Yes, I
spoke
know.
to both
I-
Rich and you about it, and I was quite disappointed to see it being scheduled on a day when our school board members really
Yeah.
should be available to go to the conference if they're available.
Well, I don't think that date's gonna stand, but I don't have any, you're asking me a question, is anybody interested? No. That's the blunt reality.
There's your short answer.
So far, no.
I hope people, if you're interested in Act 46, you'll think about the conference, especially on the Friday of the conference, because there's a lot of information going on at the VSBA and VSA conference about Act 46 as well.
Was there a reason Windsor wasn't included? It's Windham and Bennington, but Windsor isn't.
Yeah, well,
Letter from Stephen.
I don't know, I just went by what I was told to send it to, so. Wyndham County was what we were sticking. I did stick my neck out a little bit getting to Two Rivers, because they have some places that
Did we
are.
do Bennington?
Oh, you
Rutland?
did do Two Rivers.
I did Two Rivers
There's another
Bennington,
one on
Rutland?
tape.
and Bennington.
Can I ask a question about there's a meeting on the 14th for VHI, right? Is that, now Oliver Olson is doing a thing in Jamaica that same evening, and he contacted me and Bruce.
Yeah, well, I just
That's
announced
tomorrow
that,
night.
that's tomorrow
Tomorrow
night.
night.
Yeah, it's tomorrow night.
So,
The VHI, I'm going to the VHI, I can't do Oliver's thing on Wednesday because I signed up for the VHI thing, and it's really
Yeah.
important, and I think Joe's going as well.
I'm going to VHI as well.
okay. I mean, I think it's important for us to see the
See
Jamaica.
Jamaica,
Great.
yeah.
As well.
Great, I'm glad you're gonna be there, I think it's really important, because I think Leland and Gray desperately needs to be represented in the town of Jamaica.
Hmm.
I'm worried about
Oh, me too,
Leland and Gray in Jamaica.
me too. The direction that's gonna go.
So I'm glad you're gonna be there, thank you.
Now, who's the Jamaica, the,
School board chair or what?
no, the one from Jamaica, down from the grammar school? Who represents, who's on the executive committee from
Who's the
Jamaica?
board chair? Is it Ann Reynolds?
I think he's asking
Who's the chair of the Jamaica board for, and on WCSU's represent?
Stephanie.
It's
and-
Stephanie, Tom Tolbert, and
Ann Reynolds?
Reynolds.
But Ann is the one that's been showing up, has she, or has Stephanie been coming?
Stephanie
talking
came in
about
the beginning, but
WCSU
if you're
board?
talking about the executive committee,
Executive, yeah.
Well, it's Stephanie, because she's the chair.
but I think Ann's been coming to some of the discussions around Act 46, because I don't think Stephanie had time to do all of that, is what I understood. Doesn't require it's the chair necessarily.
It could
just
be the
requires
vice
it-
chair.
The
Or the board
chair
could
is
vote
the
to have
executive
somebody
committee
else do it.
member, but if the chair can't make it, they can, any of the representatives, any of the 3 representatives can go in their place.
That's so we can make sure we have a quorum when the executive committee
Yeah.
meets. And the October 28th meeting is of course important. Hope you're signing up for that meeting.
And it's also important to make sure that a board is represented,
Yeah.
you know, it gets the feedback from the executive committee.
That's it for me. Questions?
Okay. Say, any more questions, discussion on that? All right, thank you, Stephen. Bud?
Okay, first I'm going to apologize for this cold. I've got 2 documents I want to share right now. These have to do with our revenue and our expenditures for FY15. And let me just get these all out to you, and then we'll discuss that. The first is the revenues. As of June 30. The next is a summary of expenditures by program. And one of the things there is a difference in numbers from what I shared with you last time, and that has to do with tuition paid by the state for the Career Center.
That's the one I had a question about.
Yeah. And let me explain something about that. It is listed here both as a revenue and as an expenditure, so it changed both totals. The thing that's a little peculiar about that money is that we never actually see it. So it doesn't, there's not a transaction that alerts us to that being on our books. So we have to have to manually add that, and I have to admit that's another little piece of my learning curve. So that shows there. If you look at the account summary report that gives you expenditures by program, you'll see the calculation where we have our total revenue for FY15, our total expenditure. The net was a minus 28,178, and so our estimated fund balance as of June 30 is a negative 142,395. And if you look at the program costs, we did have some expenditures in special ed that were above our budget. There was also a question about special ed revenue, and we did receive, those funds do arrive after the close of the fiscal year, but they were booked as accounts receivable. So those numbers were already in what was shown to you before. I do have some information on historical trends that I'd like to share with you. Okay, let me have one. Okay. Yeah, I'll just take that one. Okay, so we looked at our audited, our annual financial reports, our annual audit, and took a look at how did we get where we are in terms of the fund balance. So the first graph shows you.
Let's wait till everybody gets it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm going to Rich so you can, no. Brett, can you put your camera on this, Rich?
Okay, the first graph is a summary of regular instruction and support services. This does not include special ed. You'll see the square indicates actual spending in each year, and the little diamond shows what our budget amount was. Now you see that line, that's just the trend line. So you can see over time the cost of regular instruction and support services has been generally upward. If you look at the last chart, that's our special education costs from 2019 to 2014, which is the last completed audit that we have. And you'll see it's been, if you look at 2009 to 2014, those two numbers are very, very close from one year to another. You see there was a little dip during some of those years, but the trend has not been generally up. However, our negative for FY15 is largely attributed to special ed costs. The other chart shows you where our fund balance has been at the end of each of those years. So we had a couple of years where we had positive fund balances. We had a couple of years where we've had negative fund balances, and we have an estimated negative fund balance for FY15. The auditors have been into our office. They are coming back on Monday for at least a week. They are concentrating right now on the WCSU and the Leland and Gray audits. So my expectation is by the end of next month, at the end of November, we'll have those audits and those final figures for you to look at. Excuse me. Any questions?
No, but this is very helpful,
Yeah,
thank
it
you.
is. Thank you.
Audit by the end of November, you say?
Yeah,
Thank you.
and then we'll have we'll have the audited figures, and hopefully that'll, inform some decisions we have to make. Thanks, and if there's
Thank you, Bud.
no objection, I'm going to take my leave because I'm really not well.
One quick
Sure.
question, you do sound awful, just barely on the other side of the cold myself, so I know how you feel. We talked about the tuition where it says tuition Athens.
Yeah, but that's,
I mean, it's clear it's not tuition Athens,
Right.
but can we alter, I mean, if we have these out in the public, it's really confusing.
yeah, what I'll do is I'll put all the tuitions together, and I don't know why they were
Yeah.
set out that way.
Yeah, it's just confusing, I think.
Yes, good point.
I think the tuition fee, special ed surcharge, that could be separate. But-
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the others could be combined, yeah.
Yep, so we'll certainly do that.
Thank you.
So we just have one little problem with our thing, checking all the expenses. We don't have the front page that added everything all up. And that comes from Carol and
Mhm.
there's no big front page that has everything all added up.
You mean the one that we usually give to Peter that
The
The
has all
summary
the?
report.
the
we're
summary
probably-
report with-
report,
Oh,
yeah.
you got this, you got the, you're going through the bills and payroll.
We've done
right?
it,
Not-
Yeah.
not accounts,
but
and you
there's
don't have
no
a
summary
page.
report page.
I guess we'll have to, we won't be able to vote an amount if you don't have a summary amount. You don't even have a total there, right?
No,
Can we
we
pull it
could
down
quickly try and do
And
it on my phone.
it's off by $53, I think.
Yeah, it's different than it would have
Well,
been
I'd
anyway.
suggest
but-
the board, appoint someone to approve once you get this proper documentation, right? You can sign
offi-
between to
aren't
get
the
them out to the
officers-
treasurer. Officers
Yeah,
can do that.
the officers can do that.
Are you available, Joe?
I am.
Tomorrow or next day?
I am.
And-
Carolyn's actually asked me to come in and sign because I know Cynthia's on vacation.
Okay, and who else?
I can't
You
report.
can't, Patty can't.
I've been doing it.
You can do it, I think, the two, and then if the board wants to appoint a third, to have three signatures.
Two can do it, I mean, you
Okay.
need two signatures
Yeah,
on each
two's
one of those,
everything.
and then the board's gonna go through it next time again anyway.
Right, I think you'll approve formally the amount at your next board meeting, but in order to issue the checks and so forth, you'll wanna not wait a month,
Correct.
Right.
okay?
And there was one from last month, right?
That only had one signature, but now it's got two.
Okay.
Oh, okay, it was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Get better.
we'll have to look into that, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks, bud. Feel better.
Right. Sorry, I didn't know what you were talking about there, Pat.
Yeah, I didn't know
couldn't
what it was called.
imagine.
I got it.
I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine what was.
I couldn't remember what it was called, but it's very
But-
important.
There was mention of a letter that came from, Windham Southeast about solar energy. Did you get
I
a
can-
letter like that? Is that
Are you
something
trying
you
to
got?
speak to
Well, I
Can
can,
you speak to it?
yeah, I can speak to that, sorry, although maybe you know the particulars about the letter. What Joe's alluding to here is that Windham Southeast School District has entered into a net metering agreement with a private installation of private investment company regarding something similar to what Newbrook is doing. And what, in fact, Dover has broken ground for already, that is installing solar panels on the school property. In Wyndham Southeast case, it's not on school property, I believe. Isn't it a separate location?
I believe you.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
Now, the question is, should we be signing on to a net metering agreement, we being Leland and Gray, with that school district or that particular site? What that awaits is the multiple sites. What that awaits is an analysis, a careful comparison of what the percentage discount is that you would have if you signed on with that particular location as compared to Newbrook, as compared to Dover. They're all in different, they are not comparable, they're not the same percentages is what what we've learned.
It sounded to me like we had the opportunity to possibly even save up to 30% on our electric costs if we were involved in this larger, it's a
Is it
consortium.
statewide?
It's a
Statewide one?
consortium of school districts that have signed on. The site doesn't matter, because it's
The,
irrelevant to where it is. It's that you buy in.
Well, the consortium is actually, and I can put a presentation for the next, information together for the next board meeting. But the consortium is less advantageous than the Newbrook project because there's a consultant that's getting a percentage of the savings with the consortium.
I thought that was also true of Newbrook.
No,
I mean, you know,
We'll
of
have
course,
to
that
go-
wouldn't matter unless we had the numbers.
Right, we have
just
to
see
compare
whether-
apples to apples.
We would, but I, from what I understood, and the reason I mentioned it to Stephen that sent the email about it was because I understood that there's a pretty quick deadline, and I think it would have had to have been made, a decision would have had to have been made at this meeting, from what I heard.
You recall any deadline like that with that consortium? I wasn't aware of any.
no, and there are other opportunities as well. With
Later
the,
on.
With the solid waste
Well-
management too, so there's a lot to compare.
Right, but I'm talking specifically about this one individual solar thing that they've got going down in Windham Southeast. And the main reason why I brought it up was because it was Frank who brought it to me. And we certainly do know that Frank's not only a taxpayer here, but he's had 26 years of experience as a CFO here. And he thought it would be something that would be well worthwhile for us to look at. So that's why I sent the email asking.
And I actually misinterpreted your email associating it with their installation and their contract. And you're talking about the statewide one, which has been
I don't know.
going on at a rather slow pace, but has been
I'm not
talked
referring to a
about.
statewide, I'm referring to the one that's going on in Windham Southeast. That Frank's been
Okay, let's
working on.
explore two tomorrow. We'll call Frank and we'll
Yeah.
talk about two, because you and I both know there's something else going on as well regarding school boards statewide as far as a consortium.
Well, the reason I bring it up is, of course, like I said in my email, if we can save, we spend a lot of money on electricity here, and we are trying to go as green as we possibly can, and I fully support going in that direction. I hope we all will.
Yeah.
And if this can save us any money, I think it makes sense for us to be looking at it. I wouldn't want to pass up an opportunity that
No.
could save the taxpayers money when we, are looking at some increasing costs, as you just showed us all the
Mhm.
time. So,
Okay, we'll get that information.
All right. Thank you.
if there's a deadline, we'll have to call a special board meeting.
Yeah, if there is a deadline, let us know and
Sure.
we'll need to act quickly. All right, thanks. Is there a career center report?
Yep, I'll be quick. I know the meeting was on September 15th. The initial report was a director's report of summer activities. They ran a very successful summer camp for girls going into 9th and 10th grades for 2 weeks, 13 girls each week. There was no tuition. They provided breakfast, lunch, and transportation. And the girls chose what they wanted to do within the STEM curriculum. They had videos, they had PowerPoints. It was very exciting. Geometry, they did origami. I won't go into all of, take up time with that. Also over the summer, the business curriculum, the FBLA National Curriculum, that course now has 68 members. They raised $19,000 last year for their activities. They cover accounting, personal finance, and sports marketing. They're a very impressive group of young people. Their activities are Santa letters, winter raffle, feed thousands, etc. The main issue that came up, and I know Stephen is concerned about this, Windham District raised the issue of funding when it conflicts with the funding to the home district and the funding to the Career Center. Michael, the director of the Career Center, said that there has now been formed a committee of directors to try to find a solution to this. That showed up in the material that Bud just gave us too.
Yeah.
There's that discrepancy. If our kids go to the Career Center, we don't get the state payment. Enrollment is good, 37 sending schools. Leland and Gray is up to 15, which was an increase. I didn't quite gather how much of an increase, but it's an increase of
We had
kids
like
going
12
down there.
last year or something like that.
And
I've got the record back.
they have, they're booming. The circus program is at capacity, filmmaking enrollment is very high, construction. There's been an interesting drop-off in advanced programs, particularly agriculture, because more kids are interested in the short programs. Advanced programs are the full year, and kids are more interested in taking a variety of cases. Ann Duran, who presented the enrollment report, questioned the overall declining enrollment in the state, the financial crunch, and felt the need to look at future programs for the Career Center. 350 students are involved in college credits through the Career Center at $100 a credit per course and a lot of scholarships. And they have received a grant from the McClure Foundation, which supports pathways to careers. And raised the question of sharing with other supervisory unions to get more like bang for your buck, more resources able to be brought in for the students, and to start courses in the home schools and then feed into the Career Center, which was, they're doing a lot of thinking about the future and courses, but they're doing extremely well right now. So, I like being that representative. I like the lunch too.
They do make a great.
That is a good
food.
perk.
I like seeing the kids, the presentation of the kids is always good.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so it was exciting. They're on to a lot of stuff. It's good.
It's great.
Great, thanks.
Thanks for being there, Linda.
Okay, well, I like it.
All right. I know we're trying to move, I know we were talking earlier about moving Tom
Yeah,
to basically accommodate things when he showed up, so we can move you
Ready to
to
roll?
right now,
Tom?
Tom, since you're
You
here.
can move me?
Yes.
You're already doing
Or aren't you here to move us?
Cool.
Does
Basically,
everybody does.
I don't know some of the people.
I think we
I was
better
gonna say,
introduce
does everybody
you.
know
Yeah.
Tom Connor?
We
Tom-
know the program, but we don't
Well,
know
Tom Connor was, has been a longtime teacher, he's a social studies history teacher here at Leland and Gray. Yeah, so you were a board member once in Jamaica too, or
I
something,
Sure
right?
was
chairman of the
a
board for
Yeah.
about 7 years.
And,
I remember with me even.
and he lived in
Yeah.
Jamaica, and, so, anyway, he
No,
he
Jamaica.
started the Journeys
He was also my
program
teacher.
via a grant from UVM or
Freeman
Freeman
Foundation.
Foundation in
I know, I believe it.
1999.
So this is, we have a group of students who will be part of the program starting in March. And that will be the 2016 program. We will have been in existence for 17 years.
Yeah.
Which is a long time.
Remarkable.
But I don't know, I recognize faces, but I don't know who's here.
Okay, introduce yourselves.
I'm Jeremy Kellaway, I'm from Newfane, I have a son who's in 8th grade.
Yeah, your boy played basketball, I remember
Exactly.
that. Yeah, we know one another, we know one another.
And
Howie.
I'm Lyndall Bowl from Brookline. the one-
Hi. We know one another. Twyla, how are you?
Good, how are you? I'm Kelly Warner from Newfane.
Okay, cool. The reason, Doreen asked me if I would come, knowing that you are about to begin, or maybe you've already begun budget deliberations or planning for next year, and knowing that there are commitments that have budgetary implications for next year with the Journey East program. I figured that there are a number of people here who basically don't know a whole lot about the program. I mean, you know about it by reputation. Some of you may have seen the documentary that the students produced. You read about it in the paper. So I thought it would be important for me to, in a very short period of time here, to provide you with some background information, to give you some context, because I realize that you're going to be making decisions, some budget decisions here over the next few months. And we will, I expect, be a part, we're part of that. So what I'm going to give you, and as a teacher, I know it's a bad thing to do, but I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to give you, Doreen, you have Stephen, Emily, you do Joe, Howie.
Thank you.
The booklet that I am giving to you is something that
I think I gave mine to Bill, so you want to give me one?
Jesse Riemenschneider, I put this together, I actually compiled all the information, and Jesse Riemenschneider, who's a social studies teacher and is working with me on Journey East, formatted this. We did this in preparation for the showing of Finding Their Place, the documentary film project that was featured over at the Independent Television Film Fest in Dover a few weeks ago. By the way, and I have a DVD which I'll give to you also.
That's fantastic.
This booklet is about 70 pages long, and in my humble opinion, it provides compelling reasons for continued board support for the Journey East program. This could very easily be 200 pages long or more. The booklet contains not only a description of the program, but reflections, essays by students who participated in the program as far back as 2000. And it details, I said that, oh, how did I state this? In their own words, what is the long-term impact of the Journey East program been on the participants? In their own words, and I think we have 29, there are 29 reflections, essays, I think 24 or 25 by former students, and another 3 or 4 by parents of students who've been involved in the program. Some of it is downright moving. And I think it will give you a very good sense of what this program has meant over the last 16 years to the students who participated in it. So I would ask that you, and I know none of you are full-time school board members, although it may feel to you at times like you are, having been there, I understand. But if you could, you know, over the next few weeks, if you have time or can find the time, read some of these essays. There are alumni here who are currently working in China. A girl from 2004, actually I have her working in China for Beijing Normal University, but I have since found out over the last 2 weeks that she's now in a graduate program in Taiwan. Students who are working in international business, students from, again, 15 years ago who were doing myriad things, and they directly attribute their experience in Journey East to what they're doing right now or to choices that they made as far as colleges are concerned, courses that they took, career paths. So I would hope that you would have the opportunity to read this, and I'm available to talk with any of you about this at any time. I don't know how many of you saw the film, Finding Their Place.
I have only seen part of it.
Okay.
I'd love to see it.
I'd love to see it.
You're going to. 3 students, Janina Gasparo-Beckstrom, Fraser Query, and Alana Redden went to China with us as part of the program in 2012. They were so moved by the experience that they decided that they, with Kevin Burke's help, decided that they wanted to make a document. They wanted to go back to China, bottom line, because they had such a great time. They wanted to make a documentary film of the program. So they raised about $18,000 to cover some of their expenses. And they went to China with us in 2014 and made this film, which is about an hour and 5 minutes, hour and 10 minutes in length. It was selected to be featured actually at this film fest in Dover. And it was critically acclaimed. It's a pretty exceptional movie. And I would strongly encourage you, I'm going to give you a copy of this. Stephen, you don't have one?
Thank you.
Thank you.
They're actually selling these
Thank you.
for $15 a piece.
So we can always make a donation.
Thank you.
I think that the DVD and the booklet will give you a pretty good handle on the program and what the program has meant to the students who've been involved. And in the last 16 years, there have been, I'd say, well over 250 students and teachers and community members who've been a part of the program. The film does not cover some of the program, and that's the part that's coming up next fall. We have an exchange with an arts college in Inner Mongolia, which some of you are very familiar with, I know. They will be visiting us next fall for 3 weeks. We will be spending a good chunk of time with them when we're in China this year. Anybody have any questions? I'm not going to take your time. I know you have a lot of other things going on, but yeah.
Let me make a few connections. So, as you know, as board member, Jeanina was on the board. She was one of the
Right.
student
Oh, yeah.
members, right?
Right.
I remember her. Now, Kevin Burke, we referred to as our in-house IT person. who actually works with the STEAM kids too. So, anyway, that's part of it, let's see, I was gonna make one other connection. Oh, for the public, if the public wants to get a copy of this, is that possible?
They should contact Kevin Burke
Okay.
here at the school, I think.
All right, so any of you out in the public that want to see this video that our kids have produced, contact the school and ask for Kevin Burke.
Yeah, FYI, this was shown at the Latches Theater in Brattleboro
Yeah,
in
that's where I saw
December
it.
to
I did see the whole thing.
Full House, which quite honestly blew me away.
Yeah.
And I think the students who made the movie as well. By the way, both Fraser and Janina are now at the University of Vermont. I think Fraser's a sophomore.
Yeah.
And in fact, has just gotten a job doing video, not documentary, video promotion for the University of Vermont as a result of his
Yeah.
doing this. And Alana is a sophomore at Emory University in Atlanta.
And the funds were raised by these students on crowdsourcing. That's how they got the 18,000.
Is this pretty unique?
Oh, yeah.
The whole thing is
Oh, yeah.
pretty unique.
Okay, good. I want to hear that. I want to hear that.
It's nowhere else in the world.
It's about as unique, yeah, it's very unique, very unique. That's being redundant, I think.
No other
but it-
high schools.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
Yeah. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just want to say this program is really a feather in the cap for Leland and Gray. It's really a gem of a program. This documentary, I saw it at the Latches. It was an incredible professional piece of work. I was so proud of these kids for doing this. I hope that stuff like this amplifies. It's like taking a projector and projecting the impact of the program out to a much wider audience. And I hope that as we continue with the Journey East program, we see more videos, more stuff on YouTube.
I have
more
an
of this.
amazing amount of footage of the Mongolian visit last year that can be put together
It would be
into a
awesome to get
documentary
a
if
kid
we
who's
have the
interested in
students
editing that.
who will do it. That's another whole part of the program that was really not covered in this documentary. I mean, they were limited. They were limited by what they could do and the amount of time that they had. But the Mongolian visit is another whole. Over the last 15 years, 16 years, I've had over 75. I stopped counting at 75 different families who've hosted Chinese or Mongolians in the West River Valley since we started this program. The Mongolians don't speak any English.
Yeah.
It has made no difference whatsoever, and the ties that have been made and communication still going on between people who were here 15 years ago as students who are now teachers at the Arts College in Inner Mongolia still communicate with some of their host families here.
Yeah, there's no question that this program's had a huge impact
So-
on so many people, so thank you so much for it.
Thank you. The bottom line for me is I honestly believe that what you will read in that booklet provides the rationale for support for this program. Bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
The only thing I'd like to thank you for, Tom, is the longevity. I know from my visits to China that what's really important is the relationship and the confidence and trust that's built over time. The Chinese culture is not a glad hand culture that you sit down and write a contract in 30 minutes and agree that it's mutually beneficial and sign off. It takes time. It takes personal commitment and relationship to have a program like this succeed and to grow to the extent it has. And, I attribute that to your dedication as well as the dedication of all the parents and students who participated and had the courage to participate.
I may just say one more thing. I just heard from the Mongolian woman, who's the translator in the Foreign Affairs Office in Huahat. This morning I got an email from her. She's just named to her position full-time. And they are, she says, Tom, we just welcomed the delegation from the University of Kentucky. They have a huge relationship with University of Kentucky, University of Illinois at Champaign, University of Hawaii, University of Utah. And I've said to President Lee, who some of you I know have met, I said, why you know, we're a dinky little high school and a dinky little state. I mean, we're just a small public school. He said, Tom, our relationship is very special. We want to continue this relationship. It means a lot to us, as it obviously means a lot to you, so. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I just had a dog training class, that was my previous.
Wow.
That's a funny thing.
All right,
I was gonna say bringing cats.
okay. We've got about 40 minutes left here. Did people have a chance to go through and think about, I mean, I missed the last meeting, I apologize. I watched it on TV, and I know that there's sort of homework, you know, go out there, think about, there was much discussion of, you know, continuing the Vision 2020, you know, board goals for the course of the next year, and you know, what we were gonna do. Have people gone away and come back with things, you know, that they wanted to say about that? Anybody got a goal?
Well, I did have a few emails back and forth with Stephen and with you about,
Right.
you know, are we looking at board goals or school goals? Are we looking at our goals as a board and as they relate to our roles and responsibilities? Or are we looking at goals for the school, which, to me, those are goals that the administration comes up with, because we're lay people. But that was just my point of view.
Right.
So, and we didn't really kind of hammer it out, so. And I did actually, Bruce and I talked, one time we met at Harmonyville store, and not had a meeting, we just got together.
Right.
We ran into each other at the
Right.
Harmonyville store. And we talked about the State Board of Education. He had at some point, someplace seen their goals, and I did happen to quickly look, and I found that they do have, you know, goals that I didn't have a chance to read them all.
Just to be clear with the public, so you're talking about goals that are related to the function of the board and the functioning of the board.
Yeah, and that, I don't know if that's what direction we were going, or, I mean, again, to me, those are the only goals that we really are, if we don't wanna micromanage, that we are bound by an obligation of responsibility to have goals that relate to us as a board. But if we start getting into setting goals for the actual school, then
is
we
our
could
job.
be cutting.
That is our job. It's not our job to run the school. It is our job to set the direction for
And
the
the goals.
administration so they can run the school.
Right. Yeah.
Right, we don't tell them how to implement it, but we certainly can say, it is the goal of the board
We
to
represent the
educate the
community.
children in this, you know.
Well, you can have specific goals
Right.
related to student performance, for example, or
Done that
certain
before.
areas or certain
Mhm.
programs. So that really is what, that you did receive from Adjournment and me last meeting,
Yes.
a number of measures and actions, right? That really, you know, I think beg greater endorsement, clarification, or direction from the board. Or new ones entirely.
I mean, it's important that the board understands its role, you know, its roles and responsibilities. That's critically important. But that's not what this is.
No, and this actually sort of, I mean, our goals in this, are, you know, our goals, what we set out as the school board's vision for the school, you know, then what Doreen gave us last month was sort of the administration's implementation, of those goals, as well as the first, as well as a way to try and quantify the goals. I mean, for a goal to be effective, it has to be measurable, and there has to be some sort of timeline associated with it, and that, to me, looks like that's the attempt at that. But there's perhaps additional clarification of our goals, narrowing, focusing needed with what's in the Vision 2020, in the document that Doreen produced. That's at least my thoughts on the matter. Are we prepared to do that? Do we need a separate meeting where we just do that?
Yeah, Joe did consult with me about this meeting, not having the time to be able to really think sufficiently, or ponder it, debate things sufficiently. You can certainly warn an additional meeting just focused on that, but I think, I know that at least the intention was that you were going to consider what goals as individual board members representing your public are the primary goals to hold the administration accountable for the school, the students' performance and learning at the school. This list that Doreen offered in consultation with me really are incremental steps leading to 2020, but there are really a whole lot of them, and not all of them are sufficiently measurable or directly, are difficult to hold us accountable.
Well, can I give my feedback
Yeah.
on this? I suggest that, I think we worked on this ourselves in August, and that went back and forth with you by email and developed this vision statement, basically. Doreen took it and went well beyond what I ever expected she would ever do, and I deeply appreciate that. I think it's incredibly comprehensive. I think the timing of us taking another meeting right now to dig into this would be challenging right now. I think it'd be challenging not just for this board, but I think it'd be very challenging for the administration, who has an awful lot of work to do right now. But I do think that we should use this, because why not? I mean, it's got some really lofty goals in it, and it's got some action steps and measures, and I think we should take it, and I think we should allow Doreen to use it in whatever way she needs, and I would ask that Doreen share her concerns about the pieces as she's working through where this is not helping, where it is helping, where you need more help. If you're, as you move forward, there's no timeline in this, really. Some of this stuff is timely, but I think we should do this, and then I think we should plan on taking the time outside of our regular school year, certainly not when we're heading into budget and everything else. Maybe during the summer months, like we did the last time, and take some time to really dig into what we're, what our vision for Leland Gray really is, and what our goals are to get there.
Or perhaps over somewhere following March, where we have the reorganizational meeting, or something like that, leading to annual meeting.
Whatever works for everybody.
Okay,
Doreen, you wanna say
Doreen,
something?
well, let me follow up on that. I mean, I agree with Emily that you can take this and use it how you will. My question for you would be, do you need additional feedback from us before you can take off and run with this?
I would ask a question. So,
Okay.
so I guess it is about feedback, which is right now, this year is a pilot year for the Agency of Education in the state. Some 22 schools have signed on to the piloting of the educational quality review. So evaluating schools through quantitative measures, experimenting to see what these reports would look like, what kind of data is revealed. And so, for example, if you look on the first page where it says, let's see, it's 1C, about report on Leland Gray's flexible pathways. Mm-hmm. The Agency of Education is going to develop their own way that they want all schools to report. So it really doesn't make sense for us to develop that. when a year from now, we're gonna be told what the inputs are, and they will likely have their own database for where that's gonna be inputted, so they can essentially compare schools.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that's an example of maybe we don't want to report on that this year, and wait, because that, wherever there's an asterisk as a new report, we haven't used that data to inform our decision-making in the past. I can give you some rough estimates. I think that 3/4 of our graduates did some kind of non-traditional learning pathway at some point during their secondary education, but I couldn't say, and it's co-op, and it's, community service and blah, blah, blah. So anything that would be measured in the educational quality review, perhaps we would hold off on any reports. Other reports that currently exist, what don't have an asterisk, we can fit those into the existing goals that we have here. So like, 1B, we already have that. But then you might feel like, oh, there are all these holes, because on the first, area, it's only one measure is reportable, but so it's really up to, you really would have to think about that. But that would be my suggestion right now, if you really want to put me on a task where a year from now it might look very different.
I concur with you. I think that, well, my feeling is that the hunt for endless data, there's a diminishing returns. We've spent a lot of time looking for data on our kids, where that energy would largely be better spent just looking directly at the kids. So if you ask me, I would prefer seeing you spend your time looking at the kids and not the data.
It seems silly to develop something that's gonna be,
Absolutely.
out the door the next year. It's just a waste of your time.
Right.
I mean, if we're sure that's in the pipeline,
We
to
are.
take that place, then,
Yeah,
and
that's-
this is,
that's certainly
this
true.
is 2020, this isn't 2016.
And it's a pilot year as well.
There's no reason to do it all at once.
It's a pilot year for the EQR, so we know that there's going to be changes and adjustments to it as it goes on. So I think that's even more of a reason, let's let it play itself out in those ways, because we are going to be part of that program. We are going to be part of the EQR coming down.
Yeah. I do think the elements of the education quality review that we know are going to be in the snapshot, as they call it, and visit and so forth, we could make sure we're attending to those elements to see, so we're not, if we're already doing something that complies with that or is leading towards that, we should not hesitate to try to get moving in that direction. And some of these are, as you said, asterisk, perhaps. So I think we should collaborate and make sure we can compare these with what we are told is going to be the education quality review process, and see if we can come back to the board and indicate we'll hold ourselves accountable for it as we look forward. I'm uncomfortable with doing nothing, is what I'm saying. Although I appreciate the advice about looking at data too much. I do think we have to hold ourselves accountable
Okay.
for
Absolutely.
some indications of student outcome and performance.
All right.
Well, have you felt like you haven't had enough information already?
No.
No, there's plenty of information.
No.
We're good.
We got two different batches here tonight, so.
Right, plus what you got.
It'll be
That's
online,
August.
That's not an area
That's
where you
never been a
are,
problem.
you shirk your duty.
Well, one thing is exciting with this education quality review is that leading the initiative as a consultant for the Agency of Education is Martha Rich, who was our consultant for our collaborative peer
Yes.
review process last year. So there's
You
a
know, we're
lot
gonna
of,
fit in real well with that. This is
Yeah.
gonna be very familiar to Leland and Gray, which
Yeah.
I was so pleased when I started hearing about EQR last year and knowing what we were going through. I thought, this is gonna be very similar. I'm really glad that there's that connection as well.
so we maybe were the pre-pilot?
Yes, we were.
Right.
Pilot for
There we
their
go.
pilot?
That's
Yeah, I
what
have
I
that folder here
Nice.
of all that information in case anybody wants to review it from the paper and elsewhere.
Anything further?
So,
Great. Next up is the is further discussion of Act 46. There is a meeting on the 28th.
This is,
What?
yeah, it's a full, if it's a
Full
full
board
board meeting, everybody should
Right.
feel comfortable going. It's not
Everyone
just-
should come.
Even though you're not, even though everybody doesn't have a vote.
Right. The three
It's a-
voting members,
it's a
I'm
re-
sure
What
will
I'm
be
trying to
there.
say is it's a board retreat, and there's a meal.
Right.
And it's, yeah,
And WCSU,
come.
and the school board pays for it. I mean,
not?
sign up and, you know,
Why not
all you have
be
to pay
there?
for is your alcohol. But there will be discussion of Act 46, and WCSU board, I know, is trying to figure out, you know, sort
there
of
will be
where
an
it's gonna
agenda.
go. And there'll be an
yeah,
agenda.
there will be an agenda. Rich and I are working on that. I would pose to the board, because this is your last meeting before, I think, yeah, before we
it
would
is.
meet, is that one proposal will be to have a study committee that revives or looks once again at the red, the PK 12 district that was proposed for the member towns of the Union School District of Leland and Gray. I'm not saying that's where it's gonna go, but I'm saying that's certainly the most relevant issue for this board.
Well,
And
it
then,
may
of course,
be,
you have,
but we don't really have a voice or a role in
you
that.
have 3 votes on that meeting in the 28th
Right,
to
but-
advocate for it, yes.
So why does this say, why is this worded this way, discussion about LNG's position at the WCSU board? What does that,
Well, the Leland and Gray board represents all the member school district boards.
For 712.
right?
Well, this board represents, 7, 12, 5 towns. But the Windham Central Supervisory Unit Board, which is the meeting for, involves a lot of other towns and all of other school districts. And they all have a say in what that board decides to do regarding Act 46. Whether the board acts collectively or whether it acts independently, Marlborough does something, Dover, Wardsboro does something, Stratton does something, they can all be part of different studies. Leland and Gray really doesn't have too much opportunity to advocate for any study other than one that involves a pre-K through 12 system of the 5 towns in the Leland and Gray Union School District. I mean, it's a logical thing to look at. Whether people want to look at it or not remains to be seen. They spent 3 years studying it before.
I would suggest, though, that, since the Wyndham Central Board has had conversations that are more broad than that, and they have also been reaching out to other SUs, that it would be smart for the Leland and Gray Board to have the conversation around whether they wanted to talk about a more broad conversation outside of our SU at the 712 level as well.
And that would be presumably with Twin Valley or with Bellows Falls or Brattleboro.
Right.
I have no idea.
Am I correct in saying that the question that's up here is, are we going to, or do we want to dissolve our school board and reform it as a school board that's going to be looking after all the schools in the district that is reformed? In other words, right now, here we are, we're a school board, we look after one school. Do we feel comfortable looking after all the schools in the district? Do we feel like that's going to improve the education of our kids or the oversight of our schools by dissolving local school boards and merging them into one large school board? Because this is what Act 46 is pushing all the schools in Vermont toward. So there's a fundamental question here that everybody tiptoes around. Do we want to give up local control of our schools? Do we want to have continue our system of local school boards controlling local schools, or do we think it's preferable to have a central school board overseeing multiple schools? And
that's part of it maybe, but you also leave out the part that, do we want to decide how we're going to enter into this, Act 46 and have some possible changes in the controls and have a voice in what happens there, versus do we want to wait 2.5 years till the State Board of Education comes and says, okay, now we're gonna tell you how it's gonna work.
Well, I gotta say,
And then we will not have a voice at all. At least now we could reach out and partner with another school.
Right.
Maybe we could get a red going where Leland and Gray continues to educate all of its kids, and there's a red board and the schools feed in. Maybe even some other schools like Wardsboro or somebody else joins into that, and we become, yes, bigger and managing more things going on. But that's far more local control than, somebody who says, all right, Windham County, you're one board. We have a chance to at least.
I resent that the state is holding a gun to our head and trying to get schools to jump into this thing as soon as possible, rather than stepping back and evaluating it.
No,
I
they're
think the
giving us
schools-
3 distinct options.
I know the options that they're giving us.
Right.
They're
They're
giving
not
us the
putting a gun
option.
to our
They're
head.
well, they are, because they're holding they're holding us hostage financially. They're saying, okay, we will give you all this money if you're willing to
We're-
give up your school board. And
We're
if you
held-
sit back, we may just decide for you.
We're
I
being held
think,
hostage financially anyway. That's one of the reasons for Act 46.
All right, so.
Costs are rising,
You know,
taxes are.
That is, we need to figure out though, the board position on this. I mean, do we have the Leland and Gray board going to this meeting and saying, we don't wanna do anything, we don't wanna have any conversations, we don't wanna entertain any options, we're gonna stay here and be Leland and Gray until the bitter end? Or do we wanna actually have a conversation and explore some of these options as a board?
Can I just insert
Sure.
something that I think is really important, and I keep
Somebody
hearing about I keep hearing these conversations, and not just here, I've been traveling all over the state listening to these conversations, and what really worries me is that the conversation becomes about, what our structure looks like, what our school boards look like, about local control and all that, and never in the conversation, or rarely in the conversation, do we talk about, are we meeting the needs of our kids? Are we really being honest and open that we are providing the best education we possibly can for our children? And are we doing it in a cost-effective manner for our taxpayers? Clearly, the data is showing that we're not doing either of those consistently across the state. So what I would hope that if the Leland Gray Board does make some decision tonight, I hope that we'll at least be keeping in mind how important it is that we do our job, and that is to make sure that we explore every option we possibly can to provide the best education we possibly can for our kids. And it is becoming more and more challenging as we sit at this table. I've been doing this. I've been on this board for about 18 years now, or 16, whatever many years it is, you lose track after a while. And it is harder and harder every year to find a way to continue to provide these programs like Journey East. And we know the value of the things that we're doing here, but it is not going to be easy if we don't start collaborating. I don't want to see us have to reduce programs for our kids, and we're already talking about that here. We've seen this coming, and I think I hope that we'll just keep that in mind as we move forward with this conversation. If we move forward with this conversation, we keep those kids right at the center of that conversation, and right on their heels should be the taxpayers. I think it's critically important.
I agree, and I think the best way we can do the best for our kids and look after our school the best and take care of our taxpayers the best is by keeping control of our school. Not handing our control over to a school, to a larger, centrally located board. And that's the question that it boils down to, and that's what's boiling down to all over the state.
Right. That is the question. And
We
Do
are
you really think that
essentially,
a
we
board,
are
do
essentially.
you think that a
located
board this size will do a better job looking after a dozen schools than we now do looking after our one school?
That's what a study will tell us.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of study is gonna tell us that?
the study obliged by Act 46. If you don't undertake a study, then you are left, as someone else characterized, just holding out until the 2.5 years when the State Board of Education has to make a decision.
There are potential constitutional challenges coming up for Act 46. Is a very good question whether Act 46 will even be in existence in 2 years.
I appreciate your cynicism, but I have to proceed on the basis of what I know, not what I speculate may happen in the future. I mean, you know. The question of whether the legislature will change its mind is always something that can happen.
And if it's not Act 46, we still have to address the issues
Right.
that we're facing.
I think we need to keep ourselves open to any possibilities instead of closing ourselves off. I mean, yes, things could change, other schools could go somewhere else, we could be stuck out on our own. But if right now, if we're open to the possibilities, what's
How-
it gonna hurt?
How does giving up control of our school
It's not about-
to another board improve the outcomes for our kids?
I'm unwilling to send our representatives to this meeting knowing that they're gonna go in hardlined. So I think we need to keep our ears open, and I hope that whoever goes to that meeting on our behalf, which I'm assuming it's the three of you, will listen. Use it as an opportunity to learn and bring that back to us.
And, I mean, this is a study, it's not any necessarily thing that's going to happen. Everything has to be approved by voters, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
So it's not really our decision to make to just, okay, this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
This is the direction we'd like to investigate and see if it has any possibilities, and then it goes to the voters.
Oh, right, it would go to the
It's
voters.
not- I
We
mean, we're
need to
so
get as
far
much
from it
information
going.
as possible.
I think we're in a desperate enough situation that we need to look at everything that might be out there. You know, and if it's not appropriate, I'm sure our voters will tell us, no, we don't want to do this.
Yes.
I have no doubt that they will express themselves clearly.
Right. Go ahead, Bruce.
Am I wrong that if there's a quorum at this next meeting, that everybody can vote?
A quorum of WCSU, still there's
A
only three
quorum
Leland and Gray
Because
voting
it's the
members.
executive committee.
Well,
No,
no,
it's-
this is a
it's
full
a
board.
full board.
This is a full
And-
board meeting, so all three voters should be there to vote.
But only those three.
But only
like
the
whole
three
board
Leland and Gray
members.
voting members can
Okay.
vote. But that's,
Okay.
you know,
But we can speak, I've gone before
Yeah,
as
I
a
went one time, yeah.
non-voting
Oh, yeah, you
member.
I
can
was told
speak.
all of you would come.
I think it'll be a very interesting discussion because the same questions will be raised and debated by other board members besides yourselves. Emily and I were just at a meeting for 2 or 3 hours in Marlboro, where, you know, there really is quite a bit of concern. In Marlboro, each school district in the WCSU has a unique position, or an interesting and unique position, because they have various degrees of options, various paths that they could explore. I mean, you can say they could do anything, but Marlboro's boils down to about 4. You as a board, really, apart from Emily's suggestion about reaching out to other 7 through 12 schools or other high schools, really have a limited number of options as a board. A union school district has a limited number of options. You could become a side-by-side with another group within a SU and so forth.
The
but-
other thing that's important to understand about this study is that if we enter into one of these Act 46 studies,
Yeah.
Leland and Gray won't be represented on that board only through the town that they
That's
represent.
right, just like the red.
So, just like the red, we won't have the same voice that we have, but I think it's, we will still be here, we will still be feeding that conversation, and in fact, the red committee made a decision to make sure they had some Leland and Gray school board members on there, so they got the 7-12 perspective, and I would hope
Right.
that that would happen
But that's up
if we
to each
ever entered
local.
into another study.
That's up to
But
each
that's
local
up to
school
each
district.
town.
I suspect it would happen the same way again.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense,
Yeah.
but we don't have a representation specifically,
Right.
only from our towns.
All right. So once again, everyone is welcome at that meeting on the 28th.
Encouraged.
And encouraged to come. They
The other thing
feed
is
you.
that those of you who are not voting members could call for a caucus of your membership as a board if an issue came up and a motion came up about which to
It's happened
vote.
before.
Then you could inform your 3 voters as to how to vote.
That's interesting.
And the 3 voters could represent a split decision.
There have been caucuses, they're not that often, but they happen.
I didn't know you could do that.
All right. So.
I got one more
Sure.
thing. It seems like this board here represents how many towns? 5. And I don't think that we go out to do harm to any town. I think we get along pretty well. We come to a decision pretty well together. So this is an example of a board that covers a lot of ground, and yet we're not doing anything nasty, which is what I keep hearing Howie saying.
I'm not saying that anybody's gonna do anything nasty, but I'm
But
saying.
you don't want one board to represent everybody,
I can't.
and yet this board does that to a large extent.
I can't see how having one board overseeing multiple schools is going to be an improvement over having individual boards overseeing individual schools as we have now. I just don't see it as an improvement or as a cost savings in any way, given how little board members get paid. A school board provides incredibly good oversight to a school. It's one of the things that have made the Vermont education system one of the top systems in the country, is that we have, almost every school in Vermont has its own board looking after every nickel that is spent at that school. And to say that we would improve situations by spreading that work out and having one board looking after multiple schools, I do not see the payoff in any way. I don't see cost savings, I don't see improved outcomes for the kids, I don't see anything. All the things that are being held out to us as improvements, such as sharing teachers, can be done very easily within the same structure that we currently have. All it
Right, but
takes
that's
is
the
the
thing that
will.
the study is really gonna prove, and all we're talking about is keeping an open mind, and I think you should come to the meeting on the 28th and
I will-
voice your
I
opinion.
will do my best to do that.
Can I just, so, you look at the SBAC results that Doreen showed us, where the 7th and 8th graders are 10 to 30% off of the state average. That's not on Leland and Gray.
No?
They spent 7 years at school before they got here.
Mhm,
There's no way they get that far behind in a year or two.
mhm.
Every individual town being in control of every individual elementary school that sends the students to this school separately
Mhm.
can be a root cause of that kind of score differentiation. Students are not getting the same education at every school. They don't have the same opportunities at every school.
And they won't even.
And
with the
every
system.
school is not paying the same amount of money for their students. If we had a regional board that wasn't thinking in the me first, my town viewpoint, but a our town, our region viewpoint, we would do what's best for the students and know what we personally want for in our town. And as painful as that might be, that means schools shouldn't be open. There are schools that should not be open in the state. There are high schools that shouldn't be open in the state. They don't have enough kids to support athletic teams. What are they doing not merging with other schools?
It's too
But they
far
won't,
for them
because
to
each
go.
individual
It's too
town
far to
has
bus
its own
kids.
control of its own board and doesn't want to shut its local town down. It will never change
That's right.
until there's regional control rather than individual town control.
Thank you for pointing out that the behind this whole Act 46 plan is closing schools.
Yeah,
It's
which it
closing
should, because
rural
as a
schools.
teacher, I can't imagine teaching a class of 5 or 6 kids and thinking that I'm giving those kids opportunities to interact socially with
We
each
are
other.
a rural
There's not enough other students to talk to.
But that's
You can't have a school that small.
Not true.
Well,
There are
you
rural
can,
schools
But
in
you
that-
can't offer the same opportunity.
You
You have a
can.
school of 150 students and a school of 25 students. It's a completely different social and academic opportunity
What
setting
about
for those
kids
two students.
who
You
live
can't
far
compare
away?
the two.
Studies are gonna,
Okay,
at
but
some
What if there
point,
aren't enough kids to have more than 10 kids in your school in your town?
look, this is all just something that has to be addressed in the study. We're certainly not gonna solve Act
It's
46
happened in
here
Vermont
tonight.
before.
I know.
Small
I'm-
towns
I'm
had
sure
3
that
or
there
4
were
little
similar
schools because they had to
conversations.
ride horseback there or
You know,
whatever it was.
100 years
And
ago
then they
when
actually
they did
consolidated
all
and,
this.
we just have not consolidated since that point of the automobile.
Right, exactly. But, all right. So, I, again, encourage everyone to come to that meeting on the 28th, and we'll move on to new business so
Steve,
we
is there an
can
email that goes
maybe
out
get
that gives people that'll be going out for people who want to sign up? It'll be a response?
We'll
So be
try
looking
again.
for it?
There has
We'll
been
try
emails
again.
inviting you
There
to
has
come to that, but
Yeah.
We'll try again.
reply and sign up.
So look for it in your
Okay.
emails, sign up.
There's something on here about reviewing the in-service for the staff on Veterans Day.
Well, I don't think we need to debate
Okay.
that or discuss that in detail. I just want to reassure you, there is a plan for all the
Okay.
teachers throughout the SU to be working on either analyzing the data from the SBAC test or other ways of looking at their assessments, local assessments to improve instruction. And Doreen has a plan she's submitted to me for Leland and Grace. You don't need to spend a long time on that unless there's some concern.
I do need to mention something under new business. It's very short though.
Okay.
Because I need to inform the board, there is a trip planned to go to Belize in April. That's being chaperoned by Leland and Gray teachers, and currently there are 8 students enrolled.
Excellent.
So I just wanna let you know that that's happening, so if you hear the buzz, they're pretty excited.
My daughter did that trip several years ago, it's a great trip.
My daughter did it too.
Oh,
She's a
super.
lot older than Ellen. It's been going on for a while.
Good to have these
It's a great
traditions
trip.
keep going, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Environmental science field trip.
Is that right?
I've heard about that.
Pace.
You can't do
Okay, we
bills and
can't
pay-
approve the bills and pay orders, but we are, Bruce and I will look at them over the next couple of days and make sure that the things that need to get paid. We'll push that to the next meeting. We need to approve the consent agenda, unless somebody needs to pull something.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right. There's no debate on that, so all in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Great. We have no executive session, right, Stephen?
Yeah. Policy committee.
Oh,
Yes.
it's not on the agenda, we can't do it.
Nothing much to say. The day is starting.
New business, but it's gonna be really quick.
Okay, go ahead, Bruce.
So we met at 6. We discussed the 3 policies that were in question. And what did I write down?
F1 and E9.
F1 and E9, we're just gonna, we'd like to recommend that the board simply approve those as they stand.
So warn them, actually,
We
no.
don't,
no, we don't
really
warn
don't
these.
need to warn
You
those.
just, I've reviewed them, they have been posted online since 2009, they aren't changing, the law hasn't changed, nothing's changed, so you can just make a motion to accept the recommendation of the committee and have them continue.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion, questions on these policies?
For the
By
public's
anybody else?
interest, E9, just to clarify, E9 is HIV/AIDS policy, and F1 is student conduct and discipline. They are posted online, and the public is welcome to review them.
It was moved to approve, right?
Oh, no, it's not
No.
approved, it's you're approving the recommendation of the committee
Policy
to
committee.
continue these 2 policies as previously adopted.
Okay, so all in favor of of the policy committee's recommendation to continue these policies, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? None? Beautiful. All right.
There was also just on our list, G11, and we decided that there were still questions about how that was, what was the content of it, and we're gonna hold that off for another month.
Right,
The
we'll meet
computer-
the policy
is that the
committee on
acceptable
acceptable
use?
use.
IT
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Anything else? All right, no executive session, right? Next meeting is November 10th, 6:30, and again, October 28th, Grand Summit Lodge, 5 o'clock, for the
We
full
RSVP to
WCSU
that?
board meeting. You'll get an email you can RSVP to, or you can just call Windham Central and tell them you're coming. That's it.
I have 2 copies of the Vermont School
Quick.
Board's book with me here that I got at the regional meeting. If anybody wants one, they can
Let's go.
I'll grab
have
one.
it.
I make a motion to adjourn?
A second.
Second.
All in favor?
We're all wanted.
Oh, we didn't actually say that Nicole Mason's coming to that. We know that we announced that?
I'll have to announce it.
Nicole Mace is coming to the
Nicole
meeting?
Mason is coming to October 28th.
Yeah.
You've got 2 issues
Executive
in it.
Director of the
Yeah.
Leland Gray boys varsity soccer lost to Burton in double overtime on penalty kicks at 2-1.